I'm in the room.
Amazing. Ah, I hit the button. Hello everyone. Again, I took a little bit longer. There were unforeseen circumstances, as always. And I am here today with Crazy Philosopher.
Hello.
Some may remember him from a previous stream. And yeah, he came to me with a complaint about the Lotus Eaters. And so we thought, why not actually cover this? What was your...
Exactly.
Yeah. It's
So-
a rather short segment, but it's best you go over it than me, and I'll put our thumbnail in the background in the meantime.
Yes, so as someone who regularly watches the Lotus Eaters, while I don't have access to the premium content, I like the podcast, and sometimes I watch the short snippets on YouTube videos, of which they upload to YouTube, like this one is one. And I found this to be a rather poor choice of segment to advertise the premium content that it refers to, where they're talking about Buddhism, and me being a Buddhist, knowing a thing or two about it, found it to be, how should I say this? It exemplifies
Wanting?
a few of the critiques I generally have of the Lotus Eaters, where sometimes I think they're a bit too stuck in their bubble and in their mindset. They are very knowledgeable in many things, but when it comes to certain things that aren't Western, they seem to be not very knowledgeable at all, and especially in terms of mindset and difference in philosophies. Like Buddhism has extremely an Eastern philosophy and has very specific ideas, definitions of things, and they seem to not know that. And also, for me, this is also an example why I quite dislike Connor, who seems to be the one who is most stuck in this way of perceiving things, in my opinion.
Yeah. I would agree with that. And I will lead with, there are a couple members of the Lotus Eaters and guests that I very much like and hold in good regard, like Stelios and the pastor they have on sometimes. I think they're doing a special series with him
Yes.
soon.
He's now part of the Lotus Eaters.
Ah.
Calvin Robinson, isn't it?
Yes, that's his name.
The Common Sense Crusade.
Good idea. Very much necessary, because common sense is the very thing that socialism and the esoteric nonsense behind it attacks deliberately. That's not accidental. That is on purpose. That's a topic in itself. Yeah, but I've noticed with Connor, and I'm horrible with names and faces, by the way. The guy who did the Afghanistan tour.
You mean Callum?
Yes, Callum. I have mad respect for him for going on such crazy adventures, but especially when he sits together with Connor, it's like you get the two kids in class that always do nonsense when you sit them together.
Well, one thing I say is I find Callum highly entertaining, so I'm often enjoying his segments simply in terms of entertainment.
He does have a good sense of humor. It's biting.
But the one thing I also would like to say is, because it came up recently, the summary of Putin's interview that Callum did, I found it a horrible segment.
I have not seen it. I've seen the interview, but I have not seen anyone's summary on it yet. Well, is it just joking about, oh no, you mentioned the history, lol?
Kind of, yes.
Oh god. Yeah, so because historical reasons have no bearing on anything ever whatsoever, anywhere in the world.
That segment quite bad, because, well, the historical reason is only part of what Putin said. He said many other things which are reasons for.
Yeah, and
But he
if
did
you
put
want to
that.
understand, it doesn't matter on which side of a conflict you are, and especially since Sargon Carl did a nice reading of Sun Tzu's The Art of War. If you do not understand your enemy, you're not gonna beat your enemy. You're gonna lose. It doesn't matter on which side you are. You have to keep an objective standpoint. Otherwise, how will you be able to deal with someone you don't even understand on how he does what? How will you know where he is going, where he is moving, and how far? And one of the arguments that the historical part from Putin led was basically that Ukraine is that's Putin's argument. I'm just mentioning it. Is that Ukraine is basically, and he didn't use these words, I'm paraphrasing, Ukraine is basically a balkanization state, where the borders were later on drawn arbitrarily and putting peoples from different ethnicities, different cultures, different nations together into one. And, well, that always leads to troubles. We know that from the Balkan, where we get the term from. We know that from parts of Africa. We know that from a certain part that has another war going on right now, that nobody is ever allowed to have an opinion on because you're always on the wrong side. Arbitrary border drawing seems to be a deliberate thing to weaken nations and to beget conflict in the future, and that is a big problem. What you think about Putin's actions or the corruption in Ukraine, those are all topics in themselves. But this balkanization issue, that is a can I say meta problem, or is that too pretentious?
I think it works. No, for me, it's just that also shows it showed my general issue with stuck being in a certain mindset. To me, it just a lot of Americans have that too. That they seemingly don't quite understand that history is insanely important for the even modern context, like especially in the old world, Asia, Europe, etc. The example I would like to give is from Switzerland. Like, we're famous for our neutrality, and that it's a deeply important topic for a sense of our nation, for a sense of our nationality. But no one knows why, because no one looks into history. Because we have had neutrality for a very, very long time. Historically speaking, it came from a specific reason and has developed in a cultural thing. So if you ask most Swiss people, when the question came up to sanction Russia and send money to Ukraine, most Swiss people said, especially the ones that know history and have a certain sense of, how should I say, national pride, said no, because it goes against our idea of neutrality. And to understand why people said that, you need to understand history.
But now we must shame you into being bad people for not supporting the people we define as good.
Indeed.
Which is what always happens. But back to the thing, Connor, and I mean this in the most positive way. I mean this more as a critique, not as an attack. He comes across to me as someone with haughty arrogance, and that might be what blinds him to some things and makes him dismissive of certain other aspects of life and peoples. And I am mainly tired of the very lowbrow German jokes. Because you can say, oh, well, of course the German is annoyed by German jokes. Can't you laugh about yourself? Well, it's not about laughing about oneself. It's that 70 years later, and
if you hear a joke every day, sometimes it's gonna get boring.
yeah, that is. If you tell that to the school kid, well, that's gonna be the quiet kid that gets bullied every day and eventually goes amok. This is not a threat. Yeah, but it's just not funny then, especially when your people do everything in their power for what is it? It's about 70 years now, to build a better reputation about that one stain in history. Because
you've basically been self-flagellating for decades
yeah.
now.
I mean, I can go lowbrow and just dismiss them as the island monkeys, which is the German slur for the English, Inselaffen.
No,
You didn't know that one?
no.
It's beautiful. It's just, I like it. It's cute. Where was I? Right, but if you because this German guilt thing that Sargon also complained often about, that the Germans always talk about the Holocaust. They always talk about the Nazi times. Oh God, you can't sit down with them over a beer, and they will always talk about it and always feel ashamed and everything. Yeah. That is what 70 years of socialist conditioning and guilt tripping and original sin playing, which is totally anti-Christian, by the way, does to you. Because, the whole Christ sacrifice that washed away original sin, and we're all responsible for our own bullshit now.
Well, the original sin part of Christianity is basically an invention of the Catholic Church.
Yeah. Basically, you can't shame the generations now for what the Nazis did. Responsibility, okay, but the way that it's sometimes what people say, but it's always only established or gotten to through this guilt and shaming process. And if this continues, yeah, of course, this will keep going. And on the other hand, what is constantly ignored, and especially also by the left in Germany, is that until 2015, where Angela Merkel did a very, very naughty thing, a very dumb thing, and if you understand where she's coming from in her biography, then it all makes sense why she did that. Germany has been the safest country in the world for Jews since World War II. That is something I think one can be proud of, because I'm always, when I get into conversations with people, and this topic comes up, but what should I be proud of in Germany? Why should I be patriotic? It's horrible. We're horrible people. We should all disappear. People think that. They say that. And
you have great beer.
Yeah, and because they don't even know. Oh, safest country for Jews since World War II? Shouldn't that be something? Or
you
or
you reigned over Europe for a while.
Well,
Not the Second World War. Before that.
Well, the First World War, should we talk about the Austrian king who was murdered by a Serbian communist?
Gavrilo Princip.
And somehow it's Germany's fault? Like, fuck off. World War II, an Austrian comes to Germany. Should we talk about the elephant in the room? Okay, Klaus Schwab, he was born in Ravensburg, Germany, but he went to school in Austria. I think we need to talk about the other countries some more. Something is going on there that just fucks Europe up. Yes, we were dumb enough to take the Austrian. Maybe we're just too gullible.
He was an Austrian refugee.
Oh dear.
No, he wasn't. It was just a joke.
If only the Bavarians had kept him in prison. The eugenics movement of the Nazis, that was an all-around thing. That wasn't just Germany. Hitler got that in prison by reading not just the German eugenicists, but the British and the Americans too, and they were not persecuted in Nuremberg. And there were judges who complained about that and thought the trials were a farce because they couldn't persecute that. It's because the Americans and British wanted to continue their eugenicist programs. Well, now we have this whole shit, especially in Canada and California, going really hard. And hey, should we talk about the NHS? I know I'm going off the rails completely, but I'm just so pissed that, oh, this is Germans, make German jokes. The Iron Cross has been reinstated as a Medal of Honor 2008, I believe. And I think some of the first ones were awarded to a US troop that saved some of our boys in an ambush in Kunduz.
Oh, I wouldn't know.
Amazing. There are some amazing stories about these. The thing is, why was this reinstated?
I mean, because it's a symbol that was just used by the Nazis, but is not a Nazi symbol in and of itself.
Yeah, the German army had this before, way before. It just
Before it
was used
German
through.
army.
Exactly. And one of the arguments to reinstate it was that in crisis regions, the Iron Cross was seen by the locals as a symbol for safety and hope, which is, if you tell that any German, either they don't believe you, they get teary-eyed, or both. This is not told to Germans, because that would destroy the whole narrative. Just like Thomas Sowell's books, they're translated into a dozen languages, one of the most renowned historians of our time. They are not translated into German. I cannot find copies of that in German.
That's fine.
I'm currently sitting down and translating Black Rednecks for a friend, because he doesn't know English. And I think that would be better than just throwing that into Google Translate. So I am mentioning all of this because this whole guilt trip nonsense is also done with the English about the colonialisms. Oh no, your evil empire.
I mean, it's done with everyone. Like here in Switzerland, they constantly want to talk about our colonial history and our part in colonialism because we made money from it.
Yeah, and the United States with their slavery, their tiny participation of it. If you look at all of history, it's a tiny part of it.
Isn't it Libya where there are still slave markets going on?
Well, they came back after Mrs. Clinton urged her husband to bomb Gaddafi out, and now the region is so destabilized that they have slave markets again. Like you can spit over to Libya and thank you, America, thank you, Clintons. So. Well, they do it with Canada. They do it with the. Oh, you took the land from the natives, from the Native Americans, and that's why, and the Eskimos and the or Inuit or whatever is currently on vogue. And how dare you? Let's bring in more immigrants. It's never about what they say. So they don't give a shit about the immigrants. They don't give a shit about the blacks. They don't give a shit about any slaves. It's all just lies. That's just basic socialism. What I'm trying to say is they do this guilt trip nonsense, what you know as German guilt. They do this everywhere. Maybe it was the prototype in Germany because that's probably the easiest. But we need to stop. So this is why we need to stop these kinds of jokes. Like what the once in a while is fine, but if this is all you know to do, that's pathetic. And that's why I am very, very thankful for Stelios. He covered some of the, I think it was the farmer protests, and dug into that.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, so there's a bit of another view on all of this. We can't work. We have to work together to get out of this garbage, and it's not gonna work if we keep bitching on each other, because then I'll just remain on my island monkeys stance, and the socialists are gonna win because they rule through divide and conquer. They win and rule through that. They divide down to the family.
Oh, yeah, no, that just, I was thinking the whole time you were saying that, I was reminded of a joke somebody made, that people are constantly saying we're a nation of immigrants, but why then are the first settlers called conquerors?
Swiss is a
colonialist.
nation of immigrants?
No. It's just this is a thing you commonly hear. I think there's probably some people who claim that about Switzerland, even though it's completely wrong. But it's wrong about most things. Yes, people did move, but after maybe thousands of years of staying in one place, you could call yourself a native.
Depends. I would never call the Moors who took the Iberian Peninsula natives.
I mean, at some point, it will be their native land.
Yeah, so good they were thrown out again. That's what I
Just
would
talking
say.
about the concept of native, it's just at certain point in time,
I mean about
becomes so ingrained with a place that.
I mean, you can say that the Irish are native to Ireland because the few people who lived there before intermingled so well that they're basically gone. And the biggest joke is, and I think the Anglos are in denial of that they are a German tribe that left the mainland.
Saxons.
Well, not just the Saxons, but there were also Saxons who did. But the Anglos, the Angeln, there was a tribe that lived on the northeastern side of Schleswig-Holstein, the bubble that gets up to Denmark. And that tribe is wholly moved over. Angeln, nothing to do with angels. It means the fishers, the fishermen, the fishing people, or if you want to be a bit mean, the fishing poles. Angel is the German word for fishing pole. Angeln, verb, is fishing. So if you see the Angeln, it's those who fish.
I mean, that's why it's called Anglo-Saxon before it's the Kingdom of England.
Yeah. It's also why I think they have more words for things like fog. Like in German, we only have Nebel, and they have fog and mist. And because it's a more sea-heavy language. and some others in regards to hunt are missing. I noticed this when I translated a story that had exactly these two topics in it, and it was infuriating. But details aside, the Irish, however, are the descendants of the Suebi, the guys with the side knots that gave Julius Caesar nightmares in the south of Germany.
Would that be the Schwaben?
They are the Schwaben. Suebi, Suabi, Schwaben. And there are more redheads in Baden-Württemberg, the big state to the left of Bavaria. So they moved over to the Iberian Peninsula and then on to Ireland. So what we basically have in this English-Irish conflict, where the English called the Irish subhuman or something in their own way, to define them as a slave people, is basically a German conflict of two excellent tribes, or immigrant tribes, which I find hilarious. I don't know if they've ever met before, and then on the British Isles, they started beating each other.
Hey, good German tradition.
In good German tradition, yes. What doesn't kill you and all, I guess. So back to the main topic. After we've properly undermined the English pride of shitting on us Germanics, on us continentals.
Oh, don't lump us with New Germans. No, I mean, I have to say, as neighboring countries, there are always going to be jokes and bans between the two.
Yeah, but at least we keep it funny. When we make jokes about the Swiss, we make them about Swiss bureaucracy being worse than ours, which it is.
Well, at least we get all your good doctors.
Oh, good what?
Doctors.
Yes. They also go to Scandinavia.
Because we managed to pay them.
Uh-huh. Yeah, we could pay them too, but you pay them so much more that they leave, and now we have to stick with these Romanians and Indians.
Well, it was worth.
And Turkish female dentists.
Should have kept
I
that
don't have good
Nazi
stories
gold
about
to
that.
yourself.
The last one I went to broke my upper jaw twice.
What the fuck?
Yeah, exactly.
How?
I don't know. I was sedated.
Twice at the same time? Or
No. She tried to get out the wisdom tooth on the right side and broke the upper jaw.
Did you use a sledgehammer?
And then she tried to get out the wisdom tooth on the left side and broke the upper jaw there.
The fuck? Competence.
And my best experience was in my teens when I had the I was very lucky to get the dentist of my grandmother at the end. He was the chief of the dentist association of my home state, and that man was a wizard. Tall, big, like he was heavy, and also big fingers. And I had a tooth that needed to get out, and it was brittle. So when he noticed that, he said, "Okay, cancel all the other appointments. This might take.
Get out the sledgehammer."
Yeah, this might take not the sledgehammer, but if this breaks, we're here for hours." What he then did was, with his big thumb and index finger, went into my mouth. Did I don't know what kind of movement. Pop. And the tooth was out. Oh, it was also intertwined with other roots of other teeth. And he just pop out, done. 10 seconds, no pain. That's a dentist. Not this weird tiny woman that broke my jaw twice.
Which makes me want to make the joke that where did that dentist learn dentistry in a card set?
Well, the Turks were allies of the Nazis, weren't they?
I think so.
I might be, or am I mixing that up with World War One? Anyway, we have a topic at hand. And hello Chad, hello Horned Rabbit and Minimundus. And whoever else is around.
Hello from me as well.
Yeah, great. I'll get the watch together on screen. Well, there we go. And I'd say you walk us through this for the most part, because it's mainly your topic. I only dabble a little bit in Zen Buddhism, and you're from a different direction, right?
Burn
Buddhism.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Which is a bit different to the other Tibetan ones. It has become recognized as one of the Tibetan schools, but it is the one that is most mixed with the previous religion that existed in Tibet.
Okay.
It is basically Buddhism and everything, except that the certain meditation practices and certain ideas about the body are slightly different.
Anything that sticks out in particular that makes Burn Buddhism special?
It has more firm teaching of the 5 elements: earth, water, fire, air, and space, or emptiness.
Emptiness, not metal?
No.
Okay.
It's a different 5 than the one in Japan.
Zen Buddhism, yeah, okay, well, it's Zen Buddhism. That's why different elements.
Yeah, Zen Buddhism is influenced by Japanese Shintoism.
Yeah. Is emptiness or space equivalent to potential?
The philosophy behind it is that you have the four elements that make everything up, but they need a place to make everything up. So the fifth element being space, giving them space or emptiness to exist.
Mm-hmm.
It's the philosophy behind it. Like in example with the body is the earth would be your bone, flesh, etc. Water would be, well, blood, liquids in your body. Fire is the heat, energy that your body needs, and air is, well, the air we breathe that then transfers to fire, the energy, etc. And then space is the space your body takes up, because your body needs space to exist.
Okay. Then hit the play button.
So the Eightfold Path is very important. It's seen as if you embody these 8.
Oh yes, context. They talking about, well, the video intends to talk about the Eightfold Path, but they don't. Basically, they get to mention the Eightfold Path and the Four Noble Truths, but they immediately go a different way, as you will see. And while we could talk about those two things, it would take a lot of time, and I myself am still learning about that stuff, getting to know it better. So it wouldn't be the greatest idea to talk about that in depth, but just so you know, the context is that they're talking about these two things.
Yeah. Can you? I know this is a mean question. Can you summarize the idea of the Eightfold Path in a sentence or three?
It's basically 8 concepts, or 8 steps, eight things you need on the path of Buddhism that you follow. Or one thing that's special about Buddhism is that while theory is important, it's basically not as important as practice. And
so it is the counter to socialism, where theory is everything.
Yeah, because in Buddhism you are taught theory and you can teach yourself theory, that's fine and all. But the thing about it is that Buddha, or Siddhartha Gautama, the historic Buddha, basically got those ideas through practice.
Mm-hmm.
So in Buddhism there's basically the idea, well, you can understand something intellectually, but you need to understand it, well, spiritually.
Yeah, which is another great example to my. I know I always I haunt everyone about socialism, but this is such a wonderful example of how it really comes from the exact opposite direction. That the theory of Buddhism is just the articulation of the practice. So the practice is first.
Exactly.
So you have something that you have proven in some way, a behavior that turns out positive, that gives you positive results, while socialism and the nonsense behind the esoteric nonsense behind it is all just theory that refuses to interact with reality and thereby cannot be put into practice. That's why it, at least what it advertises, always fails. But whether that is actually what socialism aims to do is another topic. We'll talk about that at some point in another stream.
Also, for a bit of context, I'm not very good with the Buddhist theory, to be honest, because I've now 10 years of experience and practice, and of the first 2 years of basically practicing yoga and meditation practices an hour or two a day for 2 years, I then started reading more into the theory, and my reaction was basically, oh, I intuitively know that. So to this day, I keep forgetting the theory, because to me, when I hear it, I'm like, oh yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I often forget terms and what specific definitions are.
Yeah. The second thing you mentioned?
Can you remind me again?
The Eightfold Path and the Four
Noble Truths.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the Four Noble Truths are, well, I think I can, don't I have them open somewhere? Sorry, I quickly, I had them somewhere.
Didn't do your homework.
No, I prepared it, but my freaking computer fucked up.
Oh, I thought it got lost under all the Warhammer.
No, it's next to the Warhammer. I'm currently priming minis while we're talking.
Why does a Buddhist have a Warhammer?
Because the act of building them and painting them is fun.
I thought you would spin something out of it that pacifism is not as commonly understood.
Oh yeah, a Buddhist absolutely is allowed to defend himself.
Good, we have that out of the way. Don't poke the Buddhist.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, why the fuck do you think that a lot of Buddhist monks have been warrior monks? Like
Yeah.
a lot of, in China especially, the Shaolin, that is also very Buddhist. And they also preach, well, the martial art is a way of training your body with mind. Body and mind is not a separate thing. And anyway, the Four Noble Truths of the truth of unsatisfactoriness. A bit of a mouthful, but it's basically that something is unsatisfactory. Everything has suffering, and there's a reason for suffering, which is the second, that there's the truth of the cause of unsatisfactoriness. So first you understand that there's something that's not good, then you understand the why it's not good. The third one, the truth of cessation of the unsatisfactoriness, which is practicing, getting rid of what's not good. And the truth of the way of leading to cessation and unsatisfactoriness. So finding the proper way to get rid of it. These are the Four Noble Truths. Extremely simplified. As a reminder, this is an extremely simplified version of that.
Yeah, and that there is a reason for suffering does not mean you deserve it. It's just that, well, sucks to be you, but there it is, and you need to acknowledge that it is there, not acquiesce. The abuser wants you to acquiesce to the suffering.
Yeah, well, also a lot of people in the West, well, most people in the West don't understand the particularities, karma, which leads into this one.
Mm-hmm.
Karma is basically like money you have in the bank. If you're not doing something with it, it's not gonna, well, nothing's gonna happen to it. You have to actively lead to the karma to come back to you, so to speak. For example, example would be if you kill somebody in self-defense. Killing somebody is a bad thing. You shouldn't do it. However, in self-defense, you saved your life or the life of a loved one, which is a good thing. However, both of these
the killing
things
is still bad.
The killing is still bad, and they will still give you back karma.
Mm-hmm.
However, if you don't then take further actions for that bad karma to come back to you, it's not gonna get back. If you nourish the good karma you gain from saving someone, good things are gonna come back to you. Yeah. And mostly good things make you further along the path of enlightenment.
Yeah, a simple example is also when there's someone who keeps murdering people and has already murdered 100 people. It would still be bad to kill that person. You would still get bad karma for it, but you would get worse karma for looking away and not doing anything. It's kind of like the lesser evil.
Yeah. But I think part of that we also get into later on in the video.
Yeah, you're a bit far away from the microphone, I think. It's a bit mumbly.
Really?
It was.
Yeah, maybe I have to. Can I up my mic? Because of the way I'm sitting, it's a bit uncomfortable to hold in my hand.
Oh, okay. You don't have a stand or a headset?
No, it's a headset.
Okay. Chat is asking which Warhammer army you're building.
Adeptus Sororitas.
It's my fault.
Partly. It's also partly fault that they produce new Sororita models because the metal ones are impossible to get.
Oh well. So we got the main gist out of the way, and from what I take, that is that simplification and Anriss.
Quick question, is the mic quality terribly bad? Because I'm already at highest volume.
No, I think this is the standard you have, the best that comes out of this thing.
Oh, okay. So it's workable.
Yeah, as long as you keep it like this right now, it's fine. Before it was a
Good.
bit difficult.
Yeah, so I'll try to pronounce stuff properly and project my voice a bit better.
Wonderful. Wonderful. So we got the mini super paraphrase summary, which, from what I take, is more than we're gonna get from our three friends here.
Yes, they basically mention the things, but in this video they don't really talk about it.
And that is my issue with when I wanted to mention this before regarding to the lazy jokes. And this dismissiveness that comes with it. If the Lotus Eaters keep it that way, they will only be entertainers, and not the people with the sophisticated standards that they advertised and wanted to have when they built this thing. When Sargon came up with this whole idea. Why would you name them after this philosophical concept, after all? Or reference to the Odyssey?
And I have to say, Sargon keeps doing a good job, I think, in the Lotus Eaters. I might disagree with him on points, but I think he comes across as professional and knowledgeable.
Yeah. But for this thing, I think everyone should hold himself to a higher standard than be talking head on the internet, here make fun jokes about other people and not even distinguish between people and government, which thankfully just the other day Arch Warhammer did. That was nice. I don't remember the context of the video, but he made a mention of that. That even with the Nazis, it wasn't the Germans, it was the Nazis who were some of the Germans. But man, our people suffered under these assholes. They euthanized our children because of minor defects. And seriously, minor.
This kid was born German.
No, like
No, it's a joke, sorry.
Yeah, but like maybe a missing toe or something. Like, pathetic. Less than that.
Yeah,
horrible.
I mean, one thing I find fascinating, to derail the conversation yet again, I quite like Arch, and I think he's very intelligent on political stuff, actually. His video where he defined fascism, which was a Warhammer 40k video, is actually excellent.
Yeah.
Because
he doesn't just obsess about tanks and numbers.
Exactly, but when it comes to taste, I often disagree with it.
To what?
Which is fine. Taste.
Taste, okay.
Yeah, as in what kind of stuff we like, what we enjoy.
Well, that is the subjective part.
Yeah.
His definition of fascism, that explanation video, that was something objective.
Yep.
All right, let's keep on.
Principles, if you will, I'm going to call them principles. Then you are on the path to enlightenment, and you're following the same path that Siddhartha Gautama, the founder of Buddhism and the Buddha himself, would follow. And I think that actually these are a lot easier to discuss because they're quite clear as to what their main thrust is, and
that's where I also have to butt in again. It's always easy to assume that, hey, because this thing makes sense, it sounds like XYZ, it must be XYZ. But yet again, as I mentioned, here comes the bit of the not understanding Eastern philosophy. Because I also, as context, I did a couple semesters of the ancient Tibetan. So I while I can't read it anymore and forgot most of the letters and everything, I still know how insanely important it was when reading that, when translating a text from ancient Tibetan, how impossible it is to actually properly translate them. Like the ancient Tibetan is actually not too different from modern Tibetan, but the examples like the ancient Tibetan word for nirvana is not just one word, it's like 5 different words combined into one, which have very specific meaning, which you have to understand Buddhism to truly get the meaning behind it. And similar here, it's which we'll then later get on in this video in the critique, when Buddhists say there's no such thing as a soul or no such thing as an I, they mean very, very specific things from their point of view. It's not the Western idea of soul or the Western idea of a person. It's incredibly different.
Yeah, that's why translated books that use these terms are sometimes extremely confusing and contradictory, even when they're relatively simple. Like the books from Taizen, Deshimaru, Roshii, which I quite like. He tries to explain some of these things, and they're translated from French into German, because he mainly worked in France. So you already removed several languages from the original concept, and have only these words to use that already have defined meanings. So that's why it often doesn't make sense. It doesn't seem to make sense. And why, when we see these ideas being used in Asian video games, why they manifest so differently from how things would be done in the West. Just with these simply solely with these terms, and
I honestly also see this phenomenon a whole lot with people younger than me. So I'm 28, become this year 29. So very often, and I have co-workers who work in the hourly wage part of the museum. They're young, they're students, and they just completely lack any and all perspective and tackle everything from a certain mindset without keeping in mind that the idea is actually from a very, very different mindset.
Yeah, and this alone is a reason why you should learn another language. I'm saying this to the Anglos for the most part, because everyone else in the world learns English, this baby speak with its baby grammar, which is very useful as a lingua franca, no question about that. But when you learn another language, you learn how the words have different connotations when you want to be precise in what you say. And the more languages you know, the more refined that process in your head gets. And while our island monkeys love to make jokes about German composite words, which is not the only language that does this, Spanish does it, Russian does it, Polish does it, let's not mention Finnish. What you mentioned about the Tibetan, that's a whole nother level.
Oh yeah, they have like 8 cases.
8?
Yes.
Well, they beat the Polish then.
Yeah, 8 different cases, and some case markers are, well, they are kind of easy to spot once you learn them. But also the thing about ancient Tibetan, there's no separation between words. There's no separation between sentences. So basically you have a string of syllables that well, sometimes you have a straight line, that means then you go down with the voice when you read it out loud, but it doesn't have to mean that the sentence is ended or anything like that. So it's an incredibly complicated language to read and learn.
Sounds like an alien invented it.
Oh, well, the biggest problem with it is basically the Tibetans were like, oh, we don't have a grammar, we don't have a written language, oh, let's just take the Sanskrit one with our language. So the written Tibetan is very influenced by the Sanskrit without properly adapting it to Tibetan language. So it's a bit of a confusing mess.
Like English.
Yeah, but English is way less confusing. It's
that is true, but it's an amalgamation of a bunch of languages, and then they threw away the grammar. that makes it
Well,
actually useful.
it's similar to English, Tibetan. No, not Tibetan. No, that's Japanese. But English has the advantage that it doesn't have cases. It simply has makes the relationship between words and sentences from the positioning of words.
It forces you to make very simple sentences, but English still does have a genitive. You just don't notice it because it barely has any effect. That's why we actually say English doesn't have cases anymore, but technically it still has a genitive. The apostrophe S is that, and that's all that's left.
True, though English, like as I said, word position and sentence structure is way more important than in German.
Yes, and going back to that story I translated from before, it is infuriating when you don't just want to translate literally, but you want to keep some of the poetry is a bit too much of a word, but the literary beauty of the text. When you want to retain some of that nice readability into the other language. And in German, there was one sentence that had relative length, and because German has several articles, like masculinum, femininum, neutrum, and the same for not just for the words. Well, simply because we have these gendered articles and other little words that are all gendered, you can, without confusion, refer to different nouns and characters within a sentence, backwards, forwards, always knowing who or what is referenced if they are of different genders. And when I tried to translate that sentence into English, it became impossible. Because all you have is the, and that, and this. That and this you can also gender in German. Not in English. You only have the neutral versions in English. So I had to make 3 sentences out of that one sentence, to get the same meaning across, and now it sounds like baby talk from one of these picture books for first graders. I am still frustrated about that sentence.
I absolutely get. I worked as a translator for 4 years. So
yeah,
I get that.
Yeah, so
English and German.
Yeah, and that's why these haughty island monkeys should not get so stuck up with their brooms up their asses about how awesome their culture is. And that's why I call English baby speak. It's a wonder Shakespeare managed to write what he did with the tools he had. It was basically creating great art with a stick and a stone.
Hey, don't diss stick and stones like that.
Well, there are higher tools of craftsmanship, but you could say he was an especially gifted artist if he managed to create something that great with that little of a language. The same goes for Terry Pratchett and some others. Like, there are wonderful English authors.
Yep.
But man, like it's no fun translating anything from a more sophisticated language into this. It's just like there's so much meaning getting lost. When you have I want to describe this concept that we have a word for. I need at least 3 words to triangulate the actual meaning, because, well, English also has some of those words, so it does go back and forth a little bit, but for the most part, nope. And that they stopped making composite words in the 15th century, I believe, Because they do have some, like moonlight and raindrop and all of those little things.
Oh, I actually once wrote a paper comparing how the compositors work in German and
Oh, yeah?
English. Yeah. Quite interesting. Well, it was the focus on the visual presentation of the words, because in German you can make them infinitely long, grammatically speaking.
Yeah.
It just becomes ununderstandable.
No, not really.
I mean, if you have a thing that is a page long, you kind of get lost at what exactly is describing.
Die
But
Dampfschifffahrtsverteilungsgesetz. I think you can.
Yeah, but
there's like there's like 3 other words in there. You know exactly what is meant.
yeah,
And I think what helps is this particle s that connects the words.
It follows a similar rule that basically the last part usually is the group the object belongs to, and the previous parts are modifiers.
Mm-hmm.
Like, easy example, lung disease. You know it's a disease, and you know it's affecting the lung because, well, the last part is disease, so you know that's the type of object we're talking about, and lung gives an additional modifier for what the object refers to.
Yeah. And the problem that I have with English not making composite words anymore is that there are instances, especially in badly written news articles, where I have no clue, are these words connected or are they meant by themselves, because it has a completely different meaning in that case. Or when you have 3 nouns after another, and you could combine them. You could combine the first 2, or you could combine the second 2, or you could read them all singularly. And I have no idea which is now meant. I have to guess that from context. And since I'm autistic, I hate having to do that.
Technically speaking, is a rule how to do it, but most people don't follow that.
What is that rule?
A great example is foot and mouth disease. Foot and mouth all have forget the English. Forget the word entirely. The minus looking
dash
line. The dash, thank you. They all have a dash in between, so you know it's meant to be one unit, the foot and mouth. So that's technically speaking how it ought to be done in English, but nobody does it.
Yeah, but you also don't put the dash to the final word, to the base word at the end. And that always confuses me, and I always did that the other way around, which works even less when you have more than 2 words.
They visually separate modifier and the word that gives you the definition of what object referred to.
Yeah. So I advocate for the reintroduction of composite word creation in English. That's something that the language engineers of the socialists would be helpful for pushing, but instead they just dismantle language and make it less comprehensible. It's a big important thing. The language engineers only make language less concrete, less precise, when natural language evolution tends to make language more precise. For special things like Cogni, that is not the case, because that is a deliberate code language, so that your boss doesn't understand what the hell you're talking about. But off topic. I'm great at this.
Very off topic.
Language is important. Learn your language and learn another, and maybe even a third one. Okay.
Their intention. Their intention, and it's a sort of virtue ethic in a sense. And I think that's it's a fairly reasonable attempt at trying to encompass lots of aspects of human life that people get wrong as well. It's a sort of practical focus to it.
Yeah.
And the first one, I'm going to just read the translated versions because I don't want to speak any more foreign words and embarrass myself. But the first one is right view, which is just having a clear understanding of reality. And that means and encompasses understanding and accepting the Four Noble Truths regarding suffering, as in you understand that suffering is inevitable, but there is a way of overcoming it.
important is also that the right view is also meant to be the right mentality. You have the willingness to follow the path, the willingness. You notice something's wrong, and you have the willingness to change that is wrong. And the specific of what are wrong and what needs to be done to change the wrong are too complex and too long to get into right now.
Can we touch upon the path is the goal? It's a line that the Anglos, like Britain, US, all around, don't seem to have ever heard. Most English-speaking people I have mentioned this to have never heard of that. And in German, you across your youth, at some point, you will have heard the line, "Der Weg ist das Ziel." The path is the goal.
Which I also think interesting because in the English tradition, the English-speaking tradition, I encountered the concept of the it's again a language difference. It's the thing that in the German aspect, it's often in the English context, it's the notion of that is understood that only the path matters and not the goal. But in the German one, it's not, path and goal aren't separated like that, to my understanding.
In the German, the path. You mean the words are the same in other languages? I lost you there.
No. It's that I've encountered this concept in English-speaking countries. I forgot how specifically I phrase it, but it's often phrased like the real goal was the friends we made along the way.
Ugh.
Is an example.
Yeah.
It is often phrased in the way that the goal didn't matter.
Yeah, but that's
If
more.
it wasn't part of the
sounds.
path.
Yeah, but it sounds more like some retroactive or retrospective coping, and not as the actual philosophical concept.
That's basically my point. That in the German, it's a holistic thing.
Yeah, because so the whole idea is, if the path is the goal, that simply means you get to the goal by staying on the path. It is a great parallel or instruction, basically. It's a best instruction to explain how meditation actually works. You don't obsess over what you achieve with meditation, because then you won't get it. It will always elude you. You just meditate. You just do it. That is the idea. That this is what we talked about earlier, what you mentioned earlier. Buddhism is mainly practice, and the theory comes after. Through the practice, you get to enlightenment, to the goal, to nirvana, whatever floats your goat. Not through obsessing over the goal, but simply through doing your job in regards to Buddhism. And that is relevant to any other thing as well. There's the parallel in Christianity is to not sin. Sin is missing the target, which is basically you stray off the path when you sin.
Yes, it was similar how in Christianity, at least philosophically speaking, and from the idealistic standpoint, Christians don't follow Christianity in order to get to heaven. It's not about the goal of going to heaven.
For many, it does seem to be.
Yeah, for many it does seem to be, but generally speaking, it shouldn't be. It should be because it's the right path to follow.
Exactly.
Because the path is the goal.
Yeah, and there's a counter line to that, to the path is the goal, that all the Anglos are familiar with at this point. And that is a slogan used by the ideology that I mention so often. And that slogan is, by any means necessary. That is obsession over the goal, ignoring about how you get there as long as you get there. And as we know, the more you try to do that, the more the goal eludes you. That is why they can never reach utopia, because they have no virtuous path. They only have I want, I want, I want, I want. And the German version of that slogan is a little bit different. It is mit allen what oh god, now I have to switch my brain. Alle Mittel sind recht. Something in that line. And that means all means are just. Not all means are necessary, but all means are just. That means all means are justified to get to the goal, which is something more than just necessary. Necessary sounds like, yeah, we're doing this lesser evil, it's necessary, therefore it's justified. No, in the German line, where I would guess this ideology built that up in the first place, that means they see everything they do as justified, because they have this mad goal of utopia, this mad goal of beating their enemies, and that is why for them it is completely justified to lie, betray, kill, murder, rape, genocide. That's completely justified to the socialists, because it's by any means necessary, any means are justified. Because the goal, the proposed goal of utopia, that can't ever be reached, is, well, if you have reached utopia, no evil needs ever be committed ever again, nobody ever needs to die again, everything's wonderful, and the amount of people who had to suffer, who had to die, who had to be killed, is therefore limited, which is smaller than the infinite amount of people who would suffer if we don't have utopia, because that would be infinite as time continues infinitely. That is why they justify. That's their logic. Because there would be an end to it, it's okay to kill 8 billion people now. Because once we have utopia, we don't need to do that anymore.
Yeah, the fundamental difference there is that Buddhism, as they mention, is a form of virtue ethics.
Mm-hmm.
And virtue ethics basically is about living a virtuous life. Because if you do it, the goal will inevitably come to happen, the goal that you desire. So you don't even have to desire the goal, you just have to live the proper life, so to speak. And the socialism is a form of I keep forgetting the word, damn it.
But that's work. I don't want to work. I want to do what I want.
Consequentialist ethic.
Oh.
The consequence is what matters. The outcome is what matters, not the action.
Yeah, the goal and the means are irrelevant. That's why yeah.
Which then, to exemplify it in an example, would then mean, take an example, you see somebody who's struggling for money and you decide, oh well, I have some money to spare, I can give them some so they maybe can buy themselves food or buy themselves in temporary shelter, something like that. But later on you see that person high off the rocks having bought drugs with your money. Consequentialists would now say this was a bad action because it leads to a bad outcome. Virtue ethics would say, hey, it's a good action to take. You should live a life where when you can, you should help others. Now, this help was misused, but that's not on you.
Yeah, what you can then learn from that helping this person this way does not work.
Good, exactly.
Which is what the socialists don't do. They keep giving the drug addicts on the streets not just money to buy drugs, they are now giving them drugs directly through tax money. And you could ask yourself whether they're really that dumb, or whether they're profiting from that, or whether that is a side manifestation of the eugenics movement through the useful idiots that believe they're actually helping. Well, I'll get my tinfoil. Anyway, the conclusion between these two these two opposite concepts or worldviews, if you will, I've come to 6-7 years ago. I first formulated that, and that is simply, if the path is the goal, not all means are just.
Absolutely, because
it's obvious, but you need to that these two can be put together and need to be put together, and especially in German it is more obvious. Wenn der Weg das Ziel ist, können nicht alle Mittel recht sein.
Yeah.
Did I talk over you?
No.
Okay.
Or struggle, if you will. And this also involves recognizing the law of karma and the impermanence of all phenomena, as in the inevitability of change. Or if you're taking a Hindu view, that this world is not real. But we're not talking about that because it's...
Oh.
Which is...
These three things he just mentioned, they all turn up in Gnosticism, Hermeticism, but in a corrupted form that leads to our socialist garbage.
Well, the thing is it's wrong to take the as he describes the Hindu version of the world is not real as that, because Buddhism never claims that there's no such thing as reality. Buddhism rather claims that our perception of it and how we define it is wrong.
Mm-hmm. Because we only see a sliver of it.
Also, we build a construct of permanent, in the sense of that subconsciously we think of ourselves as a permanent being, in the sense that I have this personality that has maybe not always been the exact same, but is now that way, and has always been like me. But when in fact, if you go 10 years ago, the me of 10 years is often drastically different from the me you defining as right now. So that changed drastically.
Yeah,
that
because
changed.
you have
Everything
grown.
everything about you can change. Your self-definition can change. So the Buddhism then says there cannot be a permanent I if everything about it changes.
Yeah, it doesn't talk about that you suddenly turn into a woman or a tree.
No,
that's not what it means.
Because biology is real. Buddhism will say, hey, you're that or that,
Yeah.
but in the end, your body changes, your mind changes, everything about you changes.
Yeah, Buddhism acknowledges the material reality. What it does in, contrary to socialism, what meditation does is, and that is a product you get when you do it right, the path is the goal, you can't force that. What you do through what you get or what you receive through years of meditation is a honing of your ability to objectively assess reality from what your senses deliver to you and your rational mind. The Sigmund Freud copied rather superficially, I would say, from yoga, with his with the three concepts of id, ego, and superego. And the superego is the buddhi, where we have the relation to Buddhism. So what you could say, what you hone in meditation is your superego, that keeps your ego and your id in check, so that you can keep your objective view of reality that is not tarnished by whatever affiliations you have, or by when you have to judge a conflict or figure something out in media, you can actually look at things from a neutral perspective, not be swayed by emotion.
Yeah. So a good way to exemplify this perspective on Buddhism, if you take a rock.
Yeah. May I add one more line?
Yeah. Oh, sure.
That is how Buddhism aims at seeing through the illusions that reality, or rather your mind, presents to you. And only by through this ability to objectively assess reality, you can see through the illusions presented to you. I've just said the same thing. Sorry, I'm trying to say a bit more nuanced thing, but I'm lacking the words right now. The thing is, again, socialism and where it comes from. You could almost say that Gnosticism and all this stuff is a heresy that does the exact opposite, because that is what denies the existence of an objective reality, so that it can impose the will of the ego. Socialism is the religion of the ego. Buddhism is the religion of the superego. That's the super plain dumb way I could try to put this out, and that's why these terms are they can be very easily confused. I've read the books by Helena Blavatsky, and it's basically a woman who went to India and fangirled about the concepts she heard and then made up her own shit from it. And anytime, if you look at any of Taoism and Buddhism with a narcissistic mind, that limited comprehension, and that being stuck in this ego state, that has not developed empathy, that has not developed these higher cognitive abilities, you will come to the very conclusions that Gnosticism makes. You will ascribe a will to the Tao, which it doesn't have, and all of this other stuff, and then you create these gods that all have an agenda and a purpose and want you to have a purpose, and where you rely on providence because that makes you feel important, or that you can blame your bad decisions on, or the bad things that happen to you, instead of taking responsibility for them. Because nothing is more horrible for a narcissist than a materialist soup of atoms that has no meaning, because then that means the narcissist has no meaning. If there's some godly plan, then that means there's a reason why I am here and what I'm doing, and what I'm doing is just because it's part of the plan. And that, you could almost say, is a corruption of the karmic idea as well.
Yeah. What I wanted to say before was the image I would give for. Am I interrupting or?
No. I went on to a tangent when I just wanted to add a line. I'm sorry.
So the image I would give for this idea of in Buddhism is if you take a rock. A Buddhist would always say, yes, this rock exists, but it's not the same rock as yesterday.
Yeah, there's an atom gone by the wind. The wind took it.
Exactly, but if you take an example a bit more like the smooth rocks you find at riverbeds, they once were different rocks, and they continuously keep being changed by the water flowing over them, which is what a Buddhist would point out. Hey, look, it's always changing. This rock is never the same rock, but it exists.
Mm-hmm.
And you can define it as it is this rock, even though it's different than yesterday.
Yeah. And the socialist version is the corruption of that is the idea of everything can turn into everything. Therefore, I can become a Cronenberg monster or something, or xenomorph.
Well, the one way I would phrase it is in socialism you would then say this rock exists because I perceive it existing.
Mm-hmm.
It's not because it in itself exists. It's because I give it existence.
Oh, that's the other thing. That is solipsism. Because, and I've met someone at the tea shop once, and it wasn't a very smart man. Most people who fall for this are not the smartest people, and like average intelligence and a little below, like not super low, because those people are not smart enough to be confused by this stuff. And he insisted that the world only exists when he perceives it, and that when he goes to sleep, the world disappears. And that meant that, and I asked him, so I stop existing when you go to sleep? And he meant yes. I found that a bit insulting. I'm pretty sure I am awake when he sleeps.
Yeah, well, how dare you keep existing when you sleep?
Yeah, this is like an heresy to his claim at godhood. But that is what solipsism is. That it's insanity.
Yo.
Silly.
I'll reserve my questions and criticism.
Yeah.
That's not real.
Mm-hmm. But I think it'd be good to go through each point
Okay.
individually.
So, to accept the... I'm reading that as you must accept the Buddha's interpretation of reality, not an empirical version of reality. Because you can't accept the world as it is and then also believe in reincarnation.
But the Buddha explicitly.
Let's continue a bit further so that it clarifies, but I want to... several
Buddha
points.
explicitly, Buddhism is explicitly about. So you have what are called bodhisattvas, which are basically translates to like those who are attaining wisdom on.
Which, well, he will give you the definition of bodhisattva, but they are very wrong about what a bodhisattva is. A bodhisattva, to clarify, to my understanding, a bodhisattva is somebody who achieved basically Buddhahood, could thus decide to go to nirvana, but decides to willingly reincarnate in order to teach people Buddhism, or the way.
Exactly. The Bodhisattva, the Bodhisattva has reached a point. He could enter nirvana, but he remains because there is still suffering in the world. And he'd rather help people to also get to nirvana.
And quite a few Buddhist teachers I've encountered consider Jesus a bodhisattva. Not because they want to lay claim to Christianity, but rather because they think Christianity is also a path you can take.
Yeah, there are historical interpretations, if you look in some of the Apocrypha, that give indications for that. Some of the things that Jesus said also fit into this whole concept.
I mean, my point here simply was that to exemplify the example of bodhisattva is that Buddhists and Buddhist masters and teachers also accept other paths.
Mm-hmm.
You don't necessarily have to be Buddhist, but it's about living the proper life, and that according to them, the teachings of Jesus in the Bible, as they understand them, are similar enough to the teachings of Buddhism, while not as practice-oriented, that they think it's a good way to live. So they would accept Jesus as a bodhisattva for helping people in a different context, understanding certain ideals in that context.
Yeah, and reincarnation is a spiritual concept that has nothing to do with the material world, the material universe as you see it. And as many of these people on the Lotus Eaters are very faithful Christians, it makes little sense to say, oh, your idea of spirituality is nonsense, but mine is totally cool.
Later on they will get more specific about reincarnation, but to take it ahead of the video is that the issue that Connor has is that Buddhism teaches that there is no soul, which it does.
Yeah, that's the contradictory texts where
Exactly.
due to translation issues.
Exactly, and there's the concept, as I understand, is basically that your actions you accumulate karma, and there are things that you, through your desires and actions, etc., you imprint basically onto you. You create the ego, the I, which you then imprint stuff on, which is a creation of you that you created, and the ultimate goal is to get rid of this ultimate illusion.
Yeah, the soul is something deeper than the ego.
Exactly, but
that is something that somebody who only is stuck in the conscious part of his mind, which sounds very haughty, I know, cannot comprehend.
it's incredibly difficult to explain because it's very, very specific philosophy. The thing about reincarnation, Buddhism doesn't teach that your soul moves on. It's a bit different than that. It's more like the way I really liked it, how it was explained to me is if you take a candle that is burning and light the next candle so that this candle burns as well, and then extinguish the first candle. They're two different candles, technically speaking, two different flames, but one caused the other to burn.
Mm-hmm.
So Buddhism has a very, very strong connection with causation. They very much like, it's very much a philosophy of causation, cause and effect.
Yeah,
And
karma is also way more complicated than many people believe. The whole when people say instant karma is not really a thing from everything I've read. It's just more of a pop culture. Yeah, instant karma is more of a pop culture bastardization. What is more of a thing is that so the things from your past life affect you, but also you are affected by the karma of your parents because you, and that is not your fault, but through you, your parents also get these feedback effects, these causality feedback instances. Like you may be like very, very, very mean example. You're born with bone cancer, and that is not due to your karma. That is due to the karma of your parents, so that they now, because they did shit in their previous lives, they now have to care for a child with a very, very intense health issue, and that manifests through you.
The one thing I will hold back against this a bit, because to my knowledge, Buddhism very seldomly talks about physiological stuff like that.
Yeah, I'm just trying to find a tangible example.
Yeah, I know what you mean, but it's not that people misunderstand. Buddhism wouldn't say that to a kid who has cancer, hey, fuck you, your parents did shit. It's more like it's a more spiritual concept than that. So that to my knowledge, they don't directly relate karma to physical stuff. In the sense that, hey, because you did something bad in your previous lives, you're now born with a missing leg. To my knowledge. So with that, to exemplify, it's a way to exemplify it to Westerners, but I would like to clarify, not that people think that now you can say, oh, because my parents' karma, I now have cancer.
It's the problem is that with this ephemeral concept, to find examples that get through our boneheads is very difficult.
I often like the examples, like the candle one or another one I'm going to mention, which aren't directly so related to as related to humans. It's also a big part of karma is that positive karma helps you on the path, negative karma doesn't help you on the path, but as I mentioned, you have it's like an account you have.
I don't like to use that the karma point concept, because that is what instantly leads to basically the practice that the socialists do, where I did some good today, so I can be an asshole the rest of the day.
The thing that I mean with that thing is that if you do that, what you're saying as an example, then you only basically put money on your account but did nothing with it.
Yeah, and it's even worse. It leads to something even worse, and that is why their virtue signaling culture comes from.
Because
where they pretend to do something good, therefore they have positive points now, therefore they're entitled to be assholes, for example, in traffic.
This will then be an example of basically nurturing the bad karma.
And so there was, sorry for interjecting, there have been studies on exactly this type of effect with usually most of them were Green Party voters, environmentalists, they buy bioproducts like organic food, and they often behave worse in traffic because they think they've already done good stuff, so they're entitled to like cut in line somewhere. It's fascinating. So I think we should stay away from these examples of a karma currency.
I know what you mean, and I agree with you. I'm just trying to exemplify the image, because karma, in the sense, it's you have to.
So same instance of bad example as mine?
Yeah, I would agree. It's not that the one what you take as example of the socialists doing these things and then pretending to do good. They never actually, well, did good. They continue to nurture their bad karma.
Mm-hmm.
So they're gonna be further and further and further away from.
Yeah. And they
the
delude
path,
themselves.
from
They don't see objective reality. And
exactly from
that's
living the good life. So
and
that's what I mean with, yes, points and count is very much a wrong idea. But it's not just that if you do something bad, it will come back to you. You will have to nurture that bad thing you did.
yeah. You if you're
As
actually
with the
virtuous, that has effects on you. And if you are stray from the path, sin, if for the Christian terminology, that will have effects on you, just as it has
As
on
with the
others.
example
Because
of
it's
killing
the I think the key word for all things Taoism, Buddhism is interrelatedness.
Yeah, as with the example we took early on with the killing in self, you accumulate good karma, but you then, well, actualized or nurtured the good karma by saving someone, doing it.
Mhm.
And would take the killing and enjoyed that and kept killing, you would negative karma of that.
Well, sadism leads down very, very quickly. I seem to have connection issues. I'm sorry. I hope it catches itself again. Live a little bit afterwards. Okay. Is it back? Are we back?